Welcome video producers, this is Mr. Granlund. I'm going to take you through an After Effects beginning tutorial. So first off, we're going to go to the lower left hand corner. We're going to look up After Effects, A-F-T-E-R. There it is. We're going to click on that. You might get a little window and you're going to click on the new composition. I've already got this open, so I'm going to click on composition and new composition. And we have some presets here. If you look for HD TV, and we're going to go down to 1080 29.97. So that's 1080p progressive film, progressive, and then 29.97. This is frames per second. Now, you do have the option of doing 4K video. I wouldn't do it. It's going to take forever to process. Even this is going to be kind of a pain. So, I recommend doing HD TV, but there's all kinds of stuff that you could do. The duration for this thing, we're just going to do a 10-second film, so we're going to change that to a 1 there. So the duration is 0 semicolon 00 semicolon 10 semicolon 00. Click OK. Now we have this black screen. So After Effects is a very sophisticated visual effects program, and some of the first things you need to know are some basic animation, parenting, and then we'll talk about effects. So some basic animation. Inside of After Effects, we can go to Layer, we can go to New, and we can go to Solid. This is kind of how you start with anything. It doesn't matter what color it is, so I'm going to click on the color chip here, select a color, click OK. The size, it kind of doesn't matter. You can make it the comp size by clicking that button. And it's got these boxes on the outside, so I can, size it up to whatever size I want to. Just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so you can understand what's going on here. I'm also going to get out my magnifier because there's a lot of tiny buttons in here, and they do all kinds of different things. Okay, so here's our screen, and here's our layer. This is the work area or stage. This is where we import files, so this is the project area. Down at the bottom we have our timeline, and we have different layers. This is like the Photoshop of video. And then we have effects and presets and some text options over here on the right side. Alright, so let's start with the beginning. We're going to go to our deep, it automatically names it the color, so a deep royal blue. We're going to open that up on the triangle. And it says transform. We're going to click on the triangle again, open that up, and we have some options here. Now these little tiny stopwatches, if I hover over them, it says time vary stopwatch, toggle ability a property to change over time. I'll click to add or remove expressions. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. Basically, if I click on one of these, it will start to animate and it'll drop these diamonds. These diamonds indicate that at this point in time, it's going to be at this position. However, if I go forward in time a little bit, so to 1 second, and then I go to my screen and I put it over here, you see that there's this tail that comes off of it. Okay? What it's already done is it said at this time, so at this keyframe, this diamond, it's at that location, and at this time, it's at that location. And it automatically animates all the pieces in between it. Now you have keyframes and things that you can animate automatically for all kinds of different things inside of After Effects. And it all comes back down to this basic stopwatches and keyframes here. So now if we back up, we can watch the animation over time. I can hit the space bar and it will slowly play that. I can hit 0 on the keyboard and it does a RAM preview in real time. If you hit spacebar, it may not play in real time once you get more complicated things. So this is the basic. Now we can do all kinds of things. We can have the scale change over time. We can have the rotation change over time. You don't have to lock it into, just doing it every second. I can do the number of rotations here. We have an unlimited number of things that we can change and modify. We also have these options up here at the top of the timeline area. We have a graph editor, auto keyframe properties, brainstorming, motion blur. We're going to use this quite a bit. And draft 3D, hide layers. Once you get more and more complicated, you have different, you're going to want to be able to look at your timeline in different ways so that you can be more effective. For now, we're going to enable motion blur for this. And if I go here, you notice that the edge is really sharp. Now if I turn on motion blur for this, so this turns on motion blur for everything. I go to toggle switches and modes. I'm going to turn on motion blur for this layer, and you'll see that it now has some blurring on the edges. Like if you shot this with a camera, there'd be some blurring, and you'll notice that when I hit spacebar, the preview goes way slower. If I hit 0, what it shows in the green, this is what it's kind of loaded into the RAM and what it's thought about. So as it animates, if I hit 0 again, so it shows that much of the animation going. Alright, now let's make something kind of interesting. We're going to get rid of our blue thing. That's the basics of animation, okay? So now we're going to import some files. I'm going to go to the internets, and I found a spaceship that looks somewhat familiar, and I'm going to right click, save that image as Falcon. We're going to put it onto our desktop, and I'm going to go to planet texture map. I'm going to make a planet here. I don't want to make Earth. Earth gets enough attention. Let's make this the angry red planet. Here we go, Mars. Okay, we're going to right click, save this image as, and it says 2K maker fictional, Mars. Okay, we're gonna download that. Inside of After Effects, we're gonna right click and we can import the file, or we can do Control I on the keyboard, or we can do File and Import File. And I'm gonna look for Mars, which I just downloaded. I'm going to open up that, Control I, and I'm going to do Falcon. Now the nice thing about the Falcon picture, if I just drag it in here, is it's already cut out because it's a PNG file, and that's important. I looked for spaceship.png, which means that it's transparent, it's already been cut out, I don't have to do the Photoshop bit. It's going to make my life easier. Well, let's just add some simple animation to this. I want it to just kind of fly diagonally across the screen here. So I'm going to put it up here. I go to Falcon and transform, and I'm going to set the position there, and I'm also going to have it get a little bit bigger as it flies past, so it's like it's coming at you a little bit. So that's at basically 0. I'm going to go to about 3 seconds here. I'm going to move the Falcon across the screen, and I'm going to increase the scale to 120. So it just kind of, real nicely, just kind of zoop right across. It's got nowhere to be. He must be on the Kessler run. He's not doing his 2 parsec time yet. Alright, but now let's get that planet in there, because we can do some pretty interesting things here. So we're going to take mars.jpg. It's okay, that's a JPEG. We're going to put it in here. Now we have some effects over here on the right side, and we're going to make a planet. So click in the area and type in sphere. We have CC sphere here. I'm going to take this little plugin and I'm going to drag it right on top of the Mars texture map here. Boom, planet, done, right? Okay, we got the Falcon flying apparently behind Mars, and it's much larger than the planet. We got to change that. So down here, I'm going to take Mars, I'm going to stick it in the background. There we go. Oh, and our Falcon has got some issues with the black cutout here. We can fix that. That's no problem. Okay. So for Mars, we get this effects controls that comes up here. So if you don't see that, go to Window and go to Effect Controls there. Okay, I'm going to increase the radius to 400, much bigger. Okay, and I'm going to have Mars just kind of rotate there. So under here we have rotation. We have more keyframes. Okay, now I'm going to do, let's see. Sure, we're going to have it spin weird. So we're going to do some X rotation. At time 0, I'm going to have it be whatever. And then at 10 seconds, I'm going to just rotate it a little bit. So over 10 seconds, it just rotates just a little bit. Now I can change all kinds of things. You could change your radius to be bigger or smaller. You could change your lighting. You could have it be more intense lighting. You can have it, you know, like, it's blowing up. No, ah, right? Okay. You could change the color of the light that's hitting the planet. You could have the color change over time. You can have the shading change. And all of these, if you notice, they have a stopwatch next to them, which means that they can all be modified over time. Very, very cool. But, uh-oh, what happened to my X rotation keyframes? I don't see them down here. Where'd they go? And this is an important part. Remember the letter U. It's kind of a dumb keyboard shortcut, but U unhides keyframes. Okay, so U, and it shows me the Falcon keyframes. U, and it shows me the Mars keyframes. Okay. All right. Now for that Falcon thing, we need to put a Luma key on that Falcon to get rid of the black there. So I'm going to drag Luma key onto the Falcon, and just going to increase the threshold to 5. That's just fine. There we go. The Falcon zips past. You know, but we're in space. We should see some stars, definitely. So we're going to make a new solid layer. New solid. We'll call it stars. It doesn't matter what color it is, because we're going to use an effect that gets rid of the color. So we're going to go to particle. We're going to look for CC particle world. Now we get all of these. What it does is it automatically generates particles that kind of spit out of the center point. Well, that's not exactly what we want to do. We want to change a lot of these aspects to make it look more star-like. So we're going to go to the producer, and we're going to make producer X1, producer Y1, producer Z1, and those were all mistakes. Actually, set those back to 0. We're going to make the radius X radius 1, Y radius 1, and Z radius, you guessed it, 1. So that makes a huge, you know, kind of cannon that it fires all these particles from. We want to turn the physics to be different, because we want to turn off gravity, because everyone knows in space there is no gravity. And velocity, no velocity either. So what's going to happen is these particles are just going to kind of appear like that, and then you kind of disappear. Nice. Now, here's where you can get maybe a little bit more creative. Right now, those particles are just lines. You could have them be stars. That's a little cheesy. Shaded spheres. You could change the colors. So they start off white and they turn to blue. They could be bubbles. I don't know what your galaxy looks like. I'm going to leave them as lines for now, but feel free to play with this, do some different things. The one thing I would recommend is that you, under grids and guides, you turn off these things so they don't show up. So the grid, all that stuff,